Courtney Clenney, a young and attractive blonde who craved fame, found herself at the center of a scandal due to the tragic death of her boyfriend, Christian. Despite the girl's and her lawyer's claims of self-defense, the evidence gathered during the investigation points to a deliberate murder committed by Courtney. From the age of 13, Courtney, whose real name is Courtney Clenney, had a clear plan for achieving popularity. After moving with her family to Austin, Texas, she began her journey in show business by participating as an extra in films. The girl dreamed of becoming a Hollywood star and did not miss any opportunity, appearing in commercials for well-known brands such as Pepsi. The pursuit of fame and popularity from a young age can often lead to disastrous consequences, especially when ambition outweighs common sense and moral principles. Courtney understood that her attractiveness and charisma were powerful tools for attracting attention. She actively developed her career, appearing in music videos of popular performers and posing for the men's magazine Playboy. Later, she managed to land a few small roles on television and in movies. Hello everyone, my name is John Brooks, and you're watching the DBS channel. Today we're going to talk about a shocking case that left all of America on its feet. The path to fame often lies through the exploitation of one's own appearance and sexuality. However, this does not always lead to the desired result and can have dangerous consequences. Along with her career in the entertainment industry, Courtney became passionate about fitness. Moving to Los Angeles in 2017 was a turning point. Her popularity on Instagram skyrocketed, turning the girl into a millionaire blogger. Subscribers admired her perfect body and dedication to a healthy lifestyle. However, behind the ideal image on social media, there were problems in Courtney's personal life. Her relationship with Christian, which began in 2020, quickly grew from passion into a toxic mix of jealousy, control, and aggression. Despite the luxurious apartment in Miami and the seemingly carefree life, behind the scenes of the relationship, scandals and violence were raging. This is exactly what I'm going to tell you about in great detail right now, but only to those incredible people like you who subscribe to the channel right now. Like this video and write a big comment about what they think about Courtney. Courtney Clenney, in her pursuit of popularity, did not miss any opportunity. Starting from 2015, she began appearing in music videos of famous artists. It was an important step in her career, as it allowed her to gradually move from being an extra to more prominent roles in advertisements and music videos. The path to fame is rarely easy and often requires gradual advancement, taking advantage of every opportunity. At the same time, Courtney posed for the men's magazine Playboy, which undoubtedly added to her recognition. Later that year, she managed to land a few small roles on television and in movies, which was another step in her career. However, Courtney did not limit herself to just the entertainment sphere. She also became passionate about fitness and decided to try her hand in this field. In 2017, the girl took a bold step, moving to Los Angeles. This decision turned out to be fateful, as her popularity on Instagram skyrocketed, turning Courtney into a millionaire blogger. Subscribers were delighted with the beautiful and athletic girl who regularly shared her workouts and achievements. Courtney herself admitted that she was inspired by the example of another fitness model and decided to follow in her footsteps, participating in various fitness competitions. At these events, Courtney's body looked flawless, evoking admiration from the audience. Courtney's popularity on social media continued to grow rapidly, but it was not enough for the girl. She craved even greater fame and scale. It seemed that Courtney was ready to do anything to achieve her goal, and nothing could stand in the way of her ambitions. Unrestrained thirst for fame can cloud the mind and force a person to cross the line of what is allowed. It is important to stop in time and think about the price that will have to be paid for one's aspirations. Friends, a very important point in creating such content requires a lot of time, and right now my channel and I are experiencing financial difficulties. I will be immensely grateful if you become a sponsor of this channel and support me with your donation, and in return, I will be able to respond to you personally in the comments and also mention your noble name in my video. So become sponsors. I will be infinitely grateful to you. In her pursuit of even greater popularity and financial success, Courtney Clenney decided to take a bold step, create an account on the OnlyFans platform. This social network allows users to create closed communities where subscribers get access to exclusive content for a monthly fee. Most often, the most popular content on OnlyFans is adult material. Platforms like OnlyFans can become a tempting way for young and ambitious people to get rich quick. However, it is important to understand the potential risks and consequences associated with producing and distributing adult content. Courtney created her OnlyFans profile under the pseudonym Courtney Clenney, maintaining some anonymity. In her profile description, she stated that she works as a full-time fitness model and has two beloved dogs, Jessie and Ranger. The girl was fully aware of her attractiveness and charisma, which would help her attract and retain the attention of subscribers. According to some reports, Courtney managed to earn over $3 million thanks to OnlyFans alone. This impressive amount testifies to her popularity and the willingness of fans to pay for access to her content. Financial success on platforms like OnlyFans can create the illusion of easy money and endless opportunities. In March 2022, shortly before committing a terrible crime, Courtney became a guest on the comedy podcast We're Not Miami. During the interview, she jokingly called herself a crazy toxic girlfriend. Although it sounded like a joke, there is often a grain of truth in such statements. This statement by Courtney may indicate her awareness of her own problematic character traits and unhealthy patterns of behavior in relationships. Perhaps she considered her toxicity and craziness as something attractive or even funny, not realizing the real consequences of such an attitude. Self-irony and jokes about one's own shortcomings can be a way to hide real problems and avoid responsibility for one's actions. It is important to take alarming signals in a person's behavior seriously, even if they are presented in the form of jokes. The We're Not Miami podcast became a kind of harbinger of the tragic events unfolding in Courtney Clenney's life. Her joke about craziness and toxicity turned out to be a chilling prediction of the future, which, unfortunately, became a reality. During her appearance on the podcast, Courtney Clenney was quite frank about her preferences in men. Without any hesitation, she stated that she prefers to date exclusively wealthy black guys. Moreover, Courtney emphasized her dislike for any control or instructions from a partner, which indicates her independent and strong-willed character. Such candid statements about racial and financial preferences when choosing a partner may indicate a superficial attitude towards relationships and a potential tendency towards mercantilism. The victim in this tragic story was Christian, also known as Toby Oboms. Like Courtney, he was originally from Texas, but relatively little information is available about him. From the available data on social networks, it is known that Christian studied communications at Texas Tech University and was engaged in trading. Courtney and Christian met and started dating around 2020. Initially, they lived together in a hotel, but later moved to a luxurious apartment in a 53-story building in Miami. Their residence was located on the 23rd floor with a stunning view of the waterfront. The couple enjoyed all the advantages of a wealthy life, including a private elevator that took them directly to the door of their apartment. Despite Courtney's active presence on social media and her growing popularity, Christian was much more restrained in his online activities. He rarely appeared in public, and even in videos with Courtney, his presence was minimal. This may indicate his unwillingness to be in the spotlight or a certain discomfort with the publicity of their relationship. It seems quite strange that despite living together in a luxurious apartment in Miami, Courtney and Christian never flaunted their relationship on social media. Perhaps it was a conscious decision of the couple, or evidence of certain problems in their relationship that they tried to hide from prying eyes. The discrepancy between the public image and the real state of affairs in a relationship is often an alarming signal. If people excessively hide their personal life or avoid demonstrating their relationship, it may indicate the presence of serious problems or even abusive patterns of behavior. The luxurious apartment where Courtney Clenney and Christian Oboms lived was registered exclusively in the girl's name. According to available information, the monthly rent for this residence reached an impressive $10,000. At first glance, the couple enjoyed an ideal life of luxury and prosperity. However, behind the closed doors of their relationship, serious problems were hidden, invisible to the outside eye. An alarming signal about the unhealthy state of Courtney and Christian's relationship was the information about numerous police calls to their apartment. In the period from January 2022, when the couple moved into the apartment, until the moment of the tragedy, law enforcement officers were called at least 7 times. It is striking that all these incidents occurred within just 4 months of living together. On April 6, 2022, the world was shaken by the news of a brutal murder in this luxurious skyscraper. The media reported a fatally wounded man, but the name of the suspect in the crime had not yet been revealed. The police discovered the body of a 27-year-old victim with a fatal stab wound. Later, friends recognized the deceased as Christian Oboms and provided law enforcement with information that he lived in this building with his girlfriend, Courtney Clenney. The tragic death of a young person is always a great loss and shock for loved ones. It is especially chilling to realize that the murder took place in a place that was supposed to be a safe haven, one's own home. Initially, friends characterized Christian as a smart and energetic guy. However, as new details about his relationship with Courtney emerged, it became clear that behind the external gloss, there were serious problems. It turned out that the couple had experienced instances of both physical and moral abuse from both sides. In particular, one of the neighbors claimed to have witnessed Christian raising his hand against Courtney. At the same time, the couple's friends spoke of instances when they saw Courtney hit Christian. Domestic violence is a serious problem that, unfortunately, is often hushed up and ignored. Victims often feel ashamed or afraid to talk about their experiences, especially when the aggressor is their partner. It is important to remember that violence can never be justified, and everyone deserves a healthy and safe relationship. These testimonies paint a chilling picture of a toxic and abusive relationship that led to a tragic denouement. Despite the outward glitz and glamour, behind the doors of Courtney and Christian's apartment, a real drama unfolded, full of pain, suffering, and violence. Despite the perfect picture that Courtney Clenney and Christian Obums displayed on social media, the reality of their relationship was far from a fairy tale. It is enough to look behind the scenes of the glossy photos to discover the chilling truth: a toxic relationship full of violence and manipulation. One should not blindly trust the ideal images that people present online, because reality can be much darker and more painful. When information about Christian's potential killer became public, Courtney wasted no time and immediately hired a lawyer named Frank Prieto. The defense attorney immediately stated that the girl acted exclusively in self-defense and was herself a victim of domestic violence by Christian. Prieto claimed that on the day of the tragedy, Christian broke into the apartment without Courtney's permission, since the residence was registered only in her name, and the couple was allegedly separated and not living together at that time. The lawyer insisted that Christian's only purpose when he illegally burst into the apartment was to commit violent acts against Courtney. According to the defense attorney, the former partners had broken up a month before the horrible incident. Courtney's mother said that her daughter was afraid to even leave the house, as her ex-boyfriend was constantly trying to break down the door, and when he failed to do so, he slept right on the stairwell, waiting for an opportunity to get inside. Obsession and stalking by former partners is a serious problem that can escalate into tragedy. Victims often feel helpless and frightened, not knowing how to protect themselves from the aggressor. A few days before the tragic incident, the police were called to Courtney and Christian's apartment. Law enforcement officers noticed bruises on the girl's arms and legs, which could indicate the use of physical force. According to the defense version, Courtney stabbed Christian only after he knocked her to the floor and tried to grab her by the throat. This situation allegedly forced the girl to resort to radical measures to save her own life. However, despite all the lawyer's arguments, many questions and doubts remained about the veracity of this version of events. Was Courtney really a victim defending herself from an attacker, or was there something more sinister and premeditated behind it? Write your opinion in the comments. Christian Obums' family was shocked and outraged by the statements of Courtney Clenney's lawyer about self-defense. They categorically refused to believe that the knife wound that led to the death of their son and brother was justified and necessary for protection. Loved ones described Christian as a caring, kind, and athletic guy who could not pose a threat to his girlfriend. As it became known, the murder occurred on April 3 days before the media picked up this news, and it gained publicity. According to the autopsy results, Christian received a penetrating stab wound to the chest, which caused him fatal injuries. The blade entered the body to a depth of 7.5 centimeters, which indicates the force and intent of the blow. However, Courtney Clenney's behavior after the incident raised even more questions and outrage from the public. On October 8, just 5 days after she killed her boyfriend, the girl was spotted in a bar in Miami with her father. It seemed that she felt quite well and did not show any signs of stress or worries about what had happened. Such brazen and carefree behavior of a murder suspect is shocking and outrageous. It is hard to believe that a person who has just taken the life of their partner can return to their usual way of life so quickly, as if nothing had happened. This may indicate a lack of remorse, empathy, and awareness of the consequences of one's actions. One of the bar patrons who knew about the murder situation filmed a viral video in which she tried to shame and expel Courtney from the establishment. In the recording, you can hear the woman being indignant at the fact that the suspect in the murder came to drink and have fun as if everything was fine. This video quickly gained popularity on the web, and in the comments, people expressed the same feelings of anger and indignation at Courtney's act. Viewers could not understand how a girl who had cold-bloodedly killed her boyfriend just a few days ago could be so mentally balanced and carefree. Her behavior defied common sense and raised many questions about her true role and motives in this terrible crime. One of the most outrageous aspects of this case for the public was that Courtney Clenney was not arrested immediately after the incident. Instead of ending up behind bars, the girl continued to live her usual life as if nothing had happened. In June 2022, she returned to her hometown of Austin to be closer to her parents. There, Courtney bought a luxurious house worth almost $1.5 million and transferred the same amount to her father's account. People could not understand how a girl who had just taken another person's life could continue her existence so carelessly, as if nothing had happened. It seemed that Courtney did not expect any consequences for what she had done and felt absolutely unpunished. Another detail that constantly attracted public attention was the racial aspect of this case. A beautiful white girl killed her black boyfriend and did not face punishment for it. In society, and especially among Christians' relatives and friends, there was a growing sense of injustice and the existence of certain privileges for an attractive white woman. Racial inequality and bias in the justice system is a painful and long-standing problem in our society. When a criminal avoids punishment because of their skin color, status, or appearance, it undermines trust in the law and generates feelings of helplessness and anger among the victims and their loved ones. An interesting fact was that Courtney's father, as it turned out, was unaware of his daughter's account on the OnlyFans website. This is a platform where users can share explicit content with their subscribers for money. Considering that Courtney had huge wealth and could afford to buy a house for $1.5 million, the question arises, how did her father explain to himself the origin of this money? This detail adds even more confusion and suspicion to an already convoluted and chilling story. Did Courtney's father know about her real life and sources of income? Or was he perhaps part of some scheme himself or covering up his daughter's illegal activities? The long-awaited arrest of Courtney Clenney took place on August 10, 2022 in Hawaii, where she was staying in a rehabilitation center. The reason for her stay in the facility was substance abuse and post-traumatic stress disorder. After being detained, Courtney was taken to Florida, where the next day, August 11, she was officially arrested on charges of second-degree murder. Now let's consider the official version of the events of that fatal day and the timeline, according to the prosecution. On Sunday, April 3, 2022, Christian Obams left the apartment he shared with Courtney in Miami around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Later, at 4:23 p.m., he returned home with sandwiches for himself and his girlfriend. An interesting fact is that shortly before Christian's return, namely at 4:01 p.m., Courtney was live streaming on Instagram for her followers. In the video, she was wearing the same clothes that the police later photographed her in after the incident. This detail caught the attention of many people working on the case, as Courtney's behavior seemed strange and inadequate. The fact that the suspect was acting so carefree and relaxed shortly before the tragedy raises many questions. Could she have been planning something terrible while being live? Or was it perhaps an attempt to create an alibi? Or maybe her strange behavior was the result of using some substances that affected her consciousness and actions. Many people had the feeling that Courtney was under the influence of psychoactive substances during the live stream. Her manner of communication, gestures, and facial expressions seemed unnatural and strange. This observation only heightened suspicions about her possible involvement in the subsequent tragic events. The question remains open. Was this live stream a spontaneous decision by Courtney, or perhaps part of some sinister plan? Was she trying to deflect suspicion from herself in this way, or create an impression of normality before committing a terrible crime? On that fatal day, Courtney noticed that Christian had turned off the location tracking on his phone when he went out for sandwiches. This detail became another reason for conflict, as jealousy and distrust were constant companions in their relationship. When Christian returned a few hours later, he turned the geolocation back on, but it did not appease Courtney. Obsession with a partner and the desire to control their every step are clear signs of a toxic and abusive relationship. When trust disappears and jealousy becomes all-consuming, it can lead to tragic consequences. Between 4:43 p.m. and 4:49 p.m., Courtney called her mother twice. The first conversation lasted 6 minutes and the second 7 minutes. And it was in the interval between these calls that the irreparable happened. Courtney struck Christian with a serrated kitchen knife. Courtney's mother claimed that she heard her daughter repeating that Christian was lying about something. This phrase may indicate a tense atmosphere and a conflict that was unfolding at that moment. Only at 4:57 p.m. did Courtney finally call 911, summoning an ambulance. At the same time, neighbors, alarmed by the noise, reported the incident to the building's security service, which in turn called the police. The delay in calling emergency services after a violent incident always raises suspicions. Why didn't Courtney immediately call 911 if it was self-defense? Every minute was worth its weight in gold when it came to saving Christian's life. It seems strange that between the attack on Christian and the 911 call, Courtney contacted her mother again. Perhaps she was seeking support or advice in this critical situation, while her boyfriend was bleeding out. When medics arrived at the crime scene, Christian had already lost a lot of blood. Despite all the efforts of the doctors, his life could not be saved. He died in the hospital. During questioning, Courtney categorically denied inflicting knife wounds on Christian. Instead, she claimed that it was Christian who attacked her, and she, defending herself, threw a knife at him from a distance of about 3 meters. According to her, she did not intend to harm him, but only wanted to scare him. Courtney's version of self-defense and accidentally throwing a knife from a distance of 3 meters seems highly doubtful. Firstly, hitting a moving person with a knife from such a distance is practically impossible without special training. Secondly, the nature of the wounds indicated a targeted strike at close range, not an accidental hit. The forensic expert who performed the autopsy on Christian's body also refuted Courtney's version. In his professional opinion, inflicting such a knife wound from a distance of 3 meters could only be done by a professional knife thrower, not an ordinary girl. However, Courtney continued to insist on her testimony. Interestingly, despite the seemingly luxurious and carefree life of the couple, there are several strange facts in their biography. For example, a few months before the incident, Courtney was behind on rent for the luxurious apartment. The matter went so far that on March 21, 2022, the Miami court issued a decision to evict her for non-payment. A logical question arises. If Courtney was really earning such big money, why couldn't she pay for the housing she herself chose to live in? There are also some facts from Courtney's past that draw attention. In 2018, another woman from Austin sued her for inflicting bodily injuries and material damage as a result of a car accident. This case was settled out of court, and in 2022, shortly before the tragedy with Christian, Courtney was arrested in Texas for driving under the influence. This was already the second such offense in her biography. Although these incidents are not directly related to Christian's murder, they demonstrate certain behavioral patterns and problems with the law in Courtney's life. A propensity for aggressive driving and alcohol abuse may indicate general instability and destructive tendencies. Friends of the couple said that at the beginning of the relationship, Courtney and Christian were truly in love and happy. But over time, their relationship became toxic and unhealthy. Constant quarrels, jealousy, insults, and even physical violence became common companions of their life together. The couple regularly broke up and got back together, unable to break this vicious cycle. Any little things could become a reason for conflict, such as Christian looking at another girl. Courtney, who abused alcohol, became especially aggressive and uncontrollable at such moments. Christian's friends noticed that due to constant scandals and insults from the girl, he became more withdrawn and distant. Courtney herself actively tried to isolate the guy from his family and friends. Acquaintances of the couple also told about repeated cases of physical violence by Courtney. She could push, hit, or even spit in Christian's face during an argument. Once, the girl even pushed him down the stairs at a house party. In moments of particular rage, Courtney would literally smash everything around her like a hurricane. Despite this, Christian continued to believe in the relationship and hope for the best. He wrote messages to Courtney saying that he loved her and wanted to work on the relationship. Moreover, when the girl's career took off, Christian became her personal assistant. He helped with the shooting schedule, organizing photo shoots, and so on. Courtney even promised him a percentage of the income from her OnlyFans page. Christian's behavior is a typical example of an abuse victim who continues to justify their abuser and hope for change. He was emotionally dependent on Courtney and could not break out of the toxic bond, despite the numerous manifestations of aggression on her part. From time to time, Courtney seemed to try to make amends for the violence with generous gifts for Christian. However, this was more manipulation than sincere remorse. Verbal apologies from the girl were out of the question. Instead, she created the illusion that expensive presents could compensate for the insults and pain inflicted, and Christian fell into this trap again and again. This pattern of behavior is a typical cycle of violence in abusive relationships. Periods of escalation and aggression are replaced by a honeymoon phase, when the abuser tries to make amends with gifts and promises to change. But without awareness of the problem and professional help, this only leads to an escalation of the conflict. Christian's friends also noted that the more fame and money Courtney gained, the less often she was sober. The girl abused not only alcohol, but also, probably, narcotic substances. This only intensified her unstable emotional state and outburst of aggression. One of the most shocking videos that sheds light on the true nature of the relationship between Courtney Clenney and Christian Obums was captured by a surveillance camera in the private elevator of their building. In the recording, it is clearly visible how Courtney repeatedly hits Christian in the face and also aggressively pulls his hair. At the same time, Christian does not resist and even tries to calm the enraged girl. This video recording is indisputable evidence of domestic violence by Courtney. The fact that such incidents occurred even in public places, such as an elevator, indicates a sense of complete impunity and lack of boundaries in her behavior. Christian's reaction is a typical example of an abuse victim trying to avoid escalation of the conflict by appeasing the aggressor. But the most shocking revelation was that 2 months before Christian's murder, in February 2022, Courtney cheated on him. It turns out that her own infidelity and guilt were the real reason for the morbid jealousy and control towards Christian. By projecting her own unfaithfulness onto her partner, Courtney was probably trying to justify her own destructive behavior. This betrayal became another reason for a scandal, during which Courtney grabbed a knife and tried to injure Christian in the face. Although she did not manage to hit the target, she cut his throat instead. The wound turned out to be quite serious, and Christian had to have stitches. In addition to physical violence, Courtney regularly kicked Christian out of their shared apartment and humiliated him with racist insults. This behavior is a manifestation not only of the toxicity of the relationship, but also of deeply rooted prejudices and discrimination. Despite all these alarming facts, Courtney's lawyers persistently tried to get her released on bail before the start of the trial. During the court hearings in December, the girl displayed ostentatious emotionality and cried in front of the jury. Her defense built a strategy on the fact that the murder of Christian was an act of self-defense, and Courtney herself became a victim of domestic violence. However, the judge did not succumb to these manipulations and denied release on bail. Attempts to present Courtney as a victim, despite numerous evidence of her aggressive and controlling behavior, is a typical defense tactic in such cases. Manipulation of emotions, attempts to shift the blame onto the victim, all this is designed to sow doubt in the jury and gain leniency. But the facts remain facts, and they are clearly not on Courtney's side. At the time of the tragedy on April 3, 2022, there was no doubt that it was Courtney Clenney who took Christian Obums' life. The only question that still needed an answer was whether it was a premeditated murder or an act of self-defense. Courtney herself continued to insist on her innocence and shift responsibility onto the victim. Currently, the girl is in a Florida prison awaiting the final verdict of the court. Her behavior during interrogations raises many questions and surprises. Before the investigator arrived, Courtney talked to herself and allegedly prayed for Christian, although her clothes were completely soaked in his blood. When the detective finally appeared, she apologized for her appearance, as if that was the biggest problem at that moment. Even stranger was Courtney's reaction to the news of Christian's death. When a law enforcement officer informed her of this news, she began to dramatically gasp for air and grab her head. Although people react differently to grief, her behavior seemed unnatural and exaggerated. And the most shocking moment was when Courtney asked to hug one of the investigators, as if seeking comfort and support from him. Courtney's behavior during the interrogation raises many questions about her mental state and the sincerity of her emotions. Her actions seem strange, inadequate to the situation, and possibly calculated to evoke sympathy. But knowing the backstory of her relationship with Christian, these attempts at manipulation look especially cynical and outrageous. Throughout the interrogation, Courtney kept repeating that she needed to hug her mom, that the detectives were joking with her, and that this was all just some terrible dream. She refused to acknowledge the reality of what had happened and take responsibility for what she had done. Christian's family, filled with grief and indignation, filed a civil lawsuit against Courtney. They demand compensation from her for all expenses related to the funeral and court proceedings. But most importantly, they seek justice and recognition of the suffering they endured through the loss of a son and brother. Courtney's lawyers, in turn, continue to appear on television and insist on the version of self-defense, portraying their client as a victim of circumstances. Attempts by the defense to present Courtney as a victim in this story look particularly cynical against the backdrop of all the evidence gathered. Even if we assume that there was mutual violence in their relationship, The facts indicate that it was Courtney who was the main aggressor and the toxic element. Her desire to control, humiliate, and dominate her partner cannot be justified by any circumstances. Undoubtedly, this case will long be the subject of discussion and research. Perhaps experts will never be able to come to an unambiguous conclusion about who is the main abuser in this relationship. But now, when Courtney is behind bars awaiting a verdict, her attempts to manipulate the system and public opinion look particularly unacceptable. Regardless of the final decision of the court, this tragic story should serve as a reminder to all of us about the importance of healthy, safe, and equal relationships. Domestic violence, toxicity, and abuse are problems that require serious attention and decisive action from society. We cannot allow such situations to remain without proper response and punishment for the guilty. Only in this way can we prevent new victims and build a more harmonious world for all. Friends, if you watched until this moment, then know that you are simply the best. I am immensely grateful to you for your support. Write your opinion about this in the comments and let's talk about it there, because I always try to respond to everyone. Perhaps you will like the videos that you now see and the suggested ones. I advise you to watch them as well, so I'm not saying goodbye. Take care of yourself.